The morning of December 7th, 1941, began like any other Sunday in Hawaii. The waves of the Pacific rolled gently against the shores of Oahu. Families prepared for church. Sailors relaxed aboard their ships, and the sun cast its warm glow over Pearl Harbor. No one could imagine that, within minutes, the calm of paradise would be shattered by the roar of engines and the fire of war. Without warning, Japanese aircraft appeared over the horizon. The rising sun painted on their wings burned red against the blue sky. The first bombs fell at 7:48 a.m. The peaceful waters erupted in flame. Battleships were torn apart. Planes exploded on the runway, and the harbor became a sea of smoke and fire. In less than 2 hours, more than 2,000 Americans were dead. The Pacific Fleet lay crippled. It was one of the darkest mornings in American history. But from that tragedy came something far greater, a nation united. President Franklin D. Roosevelt spoke to a stunned Congress the next day. His voice trembled with anger and resolve as he called December 7th, a date which will live in infamy. In that moment, the United States, once hesitant, once distant, stood tall and declared war on Japan. And with that declaration, America entered a conflict that would stretch across oceans and change the world forever. The Japanese Empire, already powerful and ambitious, had spent years preparing for this moment. In the early months of the war, their victories came quickly and brutally. The Philippines fell. Singapore surrendered. The rising sun flag was planted across the Pacific. For 6 long months, Japan seemed unstoppable. Their fleet was larger, faster, and more experienced. America was still reeling, wounded but not broken. Beneath the wreckage of Pearl Harbor, deep in the hidden rooms of a naval compound, a new kind of battle had already begun, one fought not with guns, but with minds. In a cramped office filled with cigarette smoke and radio chatter, a group of codebreakers worked tirelessly to unlock Japan's military secrets. They called their unit station HYPO. At its center was a quiet, brilliant man named Joseph Rochefort. He and his team intercepted encrypted Japanese messages day and night, turning chaos into meaning, numbers into clues. They had no idea if their work would make a difference, but they never stopped. Then, one code began to repeat itself. AF Japan was planning something big, a massive strike, and the target was AF, but no one knew what AF meant. Rochefort had a theory. He believed AF was Midway, a tiny speck of coral in the middle of the Pacific. If Japan took it, they could threaten Hawaii and perhaps force America into surrender. To test his theory, Rochefort sent a simple message. The base at Midway was told to report, in plain text, that their desalination plant, their source of fresh water, had broken down. Within hours, a Japanese message was intercepted saying, AF is short on water. That was it. Rochefort had done it. AF was Midway. The next Japanese strike was coming, and America would be ready. Admiral Chester Nimitz, commander of the U.S. Pacific Fleet, studied Rochefort's intelligence. He knew this was the chance America needed. If they could turn Japan's ambush into their own, the tide of the war could finally begin to turn. 3 American aircraft carriers, the Enterprise, Hornet, and the hastily repaired Yorktown, were sent to lie in wait near Midway. It was a dangerous gamble. If Rochefort was wrong, the Pacific Fleet could be destroyed once and for all. But if he was right, America could strike back with the fury of Pearl Harbor still burning in its heart. On June 4th, 1942, as the sun rose over the Pacific, the Japanese attack began. Bombs rained down on Midway Island. The air shook with the thunder of war. Japanese commanders believed the Americans were nowhere near. They were wrong. Just beyond the horizon, the three U.S. carriers waited silently. When the order came, hundreds of American planes lifted off their decks, rising into the golden sky. They flew low and slow, searching the endless ocean for Japan's fleet. Many never returned. Entire squadrons were shot down, their pilots dying in flames or crashing into the sea. Their courage seemed wasted, but their sacrifice bought precious time. As the Japanese fleet rearmed for another strike, their decks were crowded with planes refueling and bombs waiting to be loaded. That's when the American dive bombers arrived. From 20,000 feet above, they spotted the enemy below. 4 Japanese carriers lined up like targets. The pilots pushed their controls forward and plunged straight down. The wind screamed, engines roared, and the ocean raced upward. Within minutes, 3 Japanese carriers were burning. The 4th followed later that day. The battle that was supposed to destroy America's fleet instead destroyed Japan's. In one day, the rising sun of the Japanese Empire began to set. The Battle of Midway changed everything. It was the turning point, the moment America began to move from defense to offense. After Midway came the long and brutal push across the Pacific, island by island, mile by mile. Guadalcanal, Tarawa, Saipan, Iwo Jima, Okinawa. Each battle was a nightmare of mud, fire, and blood. The enemy would not surrender. The cost was unimaginable. But America's resolve was unshakable. Every Marine who stormed a beach, every pilot who flew into the storm, every ship that sailed into battle, they carried the spirit of those who died at Pearl Harbor. By 1945, Japan was cornered. Its cities burned from relentless bombing. Its navy was gone, but its leaders refused to surrender. President Harry S. Truman faced a terrible choice: invade Japan and lose millions of lives, or unleash a weapon the world had never seen before. On August 6, 1945, the sky over Hiroshima filled with a blinding flash. A single bomb ended a city. 3 days later, Nagasaki met the same fate. The devastation was beyond imagination, but it ended the war. On September 2, 1945, aboard the USS Missouri, Japan surrendered. The guns fell silent. The war was over. The Pacific had claimed millions of lives, but from its ashes rose a new world. America stood as a symbol of hope and strength. Not because it sought war, but because it endured it. From the codebreakers in Pearl Harbor to the pilots at Midway, from the soldiers in the jungles of Guadalcanal to the scientists who changed history in New Mexico, every one of them carried the same belief, that freedom must always be defended. The Pacific War was more than a fight for land or victory. It was a test of spirit, courage, and unity. And in that test, America proved what it was made of. When the fires died and the oceans calmed, the world looked to a new dawn, one forged in sacrifice, one built on freedom. And it began with a single promise, spoken in the darkest hour: we will not give up, we will return. We will win.